Well, surprise, surprise, we went ahead and jumped right on with Ken Gerhard and Anne Celine. So, welcome everyone to the Fold Mysteries, where we explore everything that lies between the folds of reality. So we're starting off a little different today, and that's mostly just because we want to get all the time we can with Ken and Anne. So we're going to jump right into our conversation here, and I'll start off with introducing Ken Gerhard. Is a widely recognized cryptozoologist, author, lecturer, and TV personality. He has traveled the world searching for evidence of mysterious animals and legendary creatures, including Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, Mothman, and the Beast of Juvendan. I can't say the word. Help me out.
Gévaudan.
Gévaudan. Thank you.
French.
In addition to co-hosting the History Channel series Missing in Alaska, Ken's research has been featured on close to 100 network television episodes, including programs like The Proof is Out There, Monster Quest, Ancient Aliens, and America on Earth, as well as The Unexplained with William Shatner, Monsters and Mysteries in America, Legend Hunters, Paranatural, and The Real Wolfman. So you also have a plethora of books that you have authored, and everybody can find all of your work as well as your books for sale on your website, kengerhard.com. So jump on there, check it out, and get to know Ken Gerhard as if you don't already know him.
Exactly, right.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Yes, it is our pleasure.
And Ken, you are joined by your fiance Anne Celine as well. So we got the double awesomeness going on tonight.
Yes,
Yeah, we
Anne
got
is
the
also
double
a
baby.
writer and a researcher, and was on Monster Quest recently. So we have kind of a Monster Quest legacy thing because I'm from the OG Monster Quest, and she's
Right.
in the new generation. And she also speaks at some conferences and stuff. So we're slightly different fields, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you're the science guy, and I'm the spiritual one. So, yeah.
It's
Interesting.
balance.
That's interesting.
Right on. So how now, Ken? I mean, you're internationally known, and I've known you for many years. And Anne, I mean, you're like coming out of your shell. You're getting ready to take on this whole field of research and cryptozoology. And what better guy to help guide you than Brother Ken Gerhard right here?
It's
definitely in really good hands for guidance and experiences, things like that. Trying to turn things around. And what got you started in this whole thing?
Oh gosh. So I actually entered into the community in 2015. I found a podcast that I was really into. It was Into the Fray Radio. And I found them because I was actually homeschooling and I was teaching about the development of entertainment and radio and TV. And so, of course, I was like, oh, I wonder if they have any radio shows on now these days. So that's how I ended up finding Into the Fray Radio. And then from there, I actually had my own podcast in 2016 called The Caravan Library of Lore. So I had that for a while. And then in 2020, I began KPNL Radio. So I actually hosted everybody's podcast on my digital broadcasting network. But ultimately, I'm a writer, and that is where my passion is. So I'm somebody that has lifelong experiences within the paranormal. So we're talking like shadow entities, Sasquatch, ghosts, and there's been a lot. And
an alien-looking creature.
That's what I was on Monster Quest for. Yeah. So, it's been quite the journey. So now I don't have the podcast or the radio station anymore because I'm fully focused on my writing.
So, I mean, were you like back in the day would watch these shows and you see this guy with a cool hat on with a skull on it? were you like, oh my gosh?
You know what? I actually didn't realize. What was that show? You have the DVD of it.
Oh, The Real Wolfman?
Yes. So I didn't realize that was you until like later on. So we were together for several months And then you were talking about that show, and I was like, "Get out!" Like I remember that.
She's fangirling and oh my gosh, right? So that's way cool.
Yeah.
Things just work out. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and in paranormal, doing that field of research. I mean, as far as investigations go, what are some of the things that you've personally gotten in the field to investigate?
Oh man. So I went to Ohio and investigated the Fairfield Infirmary, I think is what it's called, which was a lot of fun. I definitely had some experiences there. I kind of wandered off on my own and found my way down to the basement, and I really wasn't thinking too much, and I was just enjoying my time. But then all of a sudden I felt this hand kind of touch the back of my head and in my hair. And I got so scared. I ran up all the flights of steps and back out to the group of people, you know, and of course I looked like, you know, just white as a sheet.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. And then, but I also went to Ireland and went to Leap Castle, which is one of the most haunted locations. Up in the Bloody Chapel, there is a hole called the oubliette, and this is where there's like spikes and you can throw somebody in it and they die. And so there was, you know, there's a lot of negative energy that people report there. And they also talk about this, what's it called? It's an entity. It's an elemental, this really dark elemental that's supposed to be up there. But when I went there, so I actually went up there alone and the sun was setting. And I had the most peaceful, beautiful time ever. And I wrote some more of my book. But I think that when you go on these investigations, what you're putting out really affects the location and what your experience is going to be.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I also do a little, well, I actually started in the paranormal, kind of branched off into more of all facets of cryptids later on when I realized, oh, there are cryptids in the US. So yeah, so I branched off into that. So I kind of get what you're saying. So what you put out there is what you get back. So yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious with you guys having like do you have two different views of what Bigfoot is? Have you ever like talked about that?
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, we have lots of engaging discussions. I can't speak for her. She'll obviously explain it much better than I could, because I think she has a more diverse approach. But I'm an aper, you know, I'm old school aper, cut from the Grover Krantz, Jeff Meldrum, John Green kind of tree. I'm open-minded. I've been on ghost hunts and seen some things happen. I've seen a UFO. So, I mean, I'm open-minded to all kinds of unexplained phenomenon, but I don't see any reason to connect those things to Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I think Sasquatch, the most reasonable explanation is that it's a very rare and elusive hominin, an upright walking ape that lives in the wilderness areas of North America. And most of the evidence that I've researched for decades, and I've done research all over North America in active areas, and I've never seen one. I think I've heard vocalizations. I've found footprints, interviewed hundreds of witnesses. And I know there's some really weird stories out there, but if you look at the big picture of Bigfoot evidence, particularly going back to the late 50s when research started in earnest in like 57, 58, the weird stories are a very small percentage of the overarching evidence, which is, you know, it's running across the road at night, it's in the woods, drinking water, hunting deer. You know, it's like, I've never seen an orb. I mean, I've done research for years. I've never seen these orbs that people talk about flying around in Bigfoot areas, or, you know, again, I'm not trying to poo-poo anyone else's research. I'm just saying,
right.
My experience, I'm open-minded, but the most likely explanation at this point, I think, is an unknown hominin, very rare and elusive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I agree with the fact that I believe that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature. So I follow a lot of what you are saying. However, I think that how do I explain it? Like, I think that there's something else out there that can shapeshift or take the form of Bigfoot, that can then have, you know, the supernatural paranormal type of abilities to it. And then also there is, I mean, with everything, we have to look at the psychology of the individual as well, because I mean, even psychology is fascinating, and we don't actually know 100% how the human brain works. So a lot of the time, I mean, so there's 3 different explanations that a Sasquatch experience could be, I think. So
Yeah, for 3 or 4. So you're saying an actual physical sighting of an animal,
right,
a supernatural changeling or something that seems like Bigfoot, misinterpretation, like a
yeah,
bear or something,
well, right, or like
or a delusion.
kind of like, so that book that the so basically, if you have the belief system and you already, so you have this preconceived idea, and then you go out to search for Sasquatch, then you kind of have a higher probability, like if you do have an experience. Because the other thing too is we have what's called night myopia. So our eyes, when it gets dark, it starts, you know, to try to adjust.
Hmm.
So our brains are wanting to fill in the gap. And so if we're in the dark and we're searching for Sasquatch, and then our eyes are trying to adjust, and then
Hmm.
our brain is going, oh, what's this noise or what's that? Then it can create a similar experience. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's what every person's, you know, it's just, it's another contributing idea to the whole thing that I think should be considered, because if we really want to get to the truth, then we should know the things that we should cross out.
That's very, very interesting. You know, and you're right. I mean, I've been in pitch black darkness myself, and it's where your eyes are wanting to grasp upon something. And then there's like in a cave, for instance, where there's total darkness.
Yeah.
And if you hear something, I think, you know, I read the psychological effects of that is that, and if we're going out there for that reason, like you say, Bigfoot, oh, then we have Bigfoot on the brain. Oh, that was done by Bigfoot. Bigfoot
Right.
did this, Bigfoot did that. You
Yeah.
know, yet this is a field where we also, on the other side of the coin, have to be self-disciplined at. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, hold up. Not everything is Bigfoot related. I'm out here for Bigfoot, but that could have been a mouse that sounded really big because it's really, really quiet, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what both of you guys said. I can vibe with what both you guys said. Ken, that you think it's flesh and blood. And then with what you said, and about there being a kind of a mixed bag of reasons for the experiences people are having. Because like you were describing the tulpa type thing, you know, that it could be something taking on the appearance and the actions of what we believe a Bigfoot is, and then kind of adding a more paranormal aspect to it.
Right.
So yeah, I actually have said that so many times before, and I was like, oh, when she said that, I was like, yes, I agree.
Right on. Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah. So for you, Ken, I like the fact that you bring in multiple aspects into your Bigfoot research, like zoology, anthropology, even psychology when talking to witnesses. I really appreciate that you bring all those facets into researching a Bigfoot experience. So as far as psychology goes, what do you kind of look for in like cues or key signs of, you know, when you're talking to somebody? What's that psychology that you utilize?
I have, you know, as I said, I've interviewed hundreds of Bigfoot and other cryptid eyewitnesses through our claimed eyewitnesses. There are different levels of credibility, and I'm sure you guys find this as well. But, you know, there are people that will come to you and say, man, I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. Didn't really think about Bigfoot. I didn't care about Bigfoot, but then I finally saw one of these things. I wasn't expecting it, you know, whatever. And then there's people that come to you and say, man, I grew up my whole life watching all those Bigfoot shows, and now I've had 8 sightings, you know. Then it points to what Abe said about confirmation bias. So it all starts there. We all have to acknowledge that as individuals, we have different influences, genetic, you know, upbringing, belief systems, whatever, and some people are going to be more inclined to, have a bias towards an experience as opposed to someone that may be, kind of unaware. And then you have skilled observers, people that are like in the woods all the time, like park rangers and hunters and farmers, ranchers, and people that are used to animals and wildlife, as opposed to someone that maybe is from an urban area that isn't really used to the sounds and things that run around in the woods.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I don't like to be disingenuous to people, but I do occasionally get, I get contacted by a lot of people that are experiencers that claim, I've had 7 Bigfoot sightings in 4 states. And I'm telling them, hey, I've been doing this for 45 years and I've investigated all over North America and I've never had a sighting. So how is it? And I always try to be respectful. How is it you had 7 sightings? So I don't know. It kind of starts there. And then the other thing that I've learned about recently is that certain types of people, one of the big 5 personality traits is called openness to experience. And I kind of came upon this idea because I was having a discussion one night with like Cliff Barrickman and Matt Pruitt. And I said, man, why are, we're all ex-musicians or we're all musicians. Why are there so many musicians in the Bigfoot field? We could put 10 bands together with all the musicians I know in the Bigfoot field. And Matt explained, he said, well, we all have this openness to experience personality trait. It makes you very creative. You're artistic and you like to do music or art or writing or whatever, but you're also real curious about things, that are mysterious and kind of, so that makes sense. Now, within that, it's important for us as researchers to kind of rein that in a bit and understand that you really have to try to be objective and agnostic when it comes to claims and evidence and not just jump on the, it's like Abe said, it's always Bigfoot bandwagon, which some people do. So I think that's the difference in levels in terms of like, people like Ann and I, we're very curious about Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts and other mysteries. And we think some of them might be real. And then people that say that they're living with a family of Sasquatches and dogmen on their property and they are interacting with them daily. And again, not to, I guess I'm always ruffling feathers, but I mean, what I'm saying, those claims to those people, those are true things. And I guess my argument would be that their level of openness to experience is elevated to a level where, they think they're kind of at the nexus or the center of all this weird phenomenon that's going on around them. And for some people, there may be weird phenomenon going on all around them. I can't prove or disprove that, but that's kind of the sense I get, is that some people, I don't think it's a malicious thing. I don't think people are intentionally making up stories per se. I think they're kind of embedded into a type of a fantasy world, where there are, and some of it, she can talk about the trauma aspect, because that's been brought up as well, that there might be a connection to trauma.
Yeah, trauma can play a really big part in all of this too. I've been trying to study psychology, and I have, through that lens, I have also looked at some of the experiences that I have personally had. There was one experience that I had when I was really little. I was around 6 or so, and for the longest time, I believed that it was an alien entity that was in my room at night. It was not. I learned later it was not. It was a human, and it was a traumatic situation. But because I already had a belief system in place at such a young age, my brain created the story so it was easier to handle than the actual trauma. And so, you have to look at those things, and it can be hard. And I know a lot of people can also become agitated to think that their brain maybe lied to them or that they can't trust it. But really, truly, it's a protection thing. And so it does happen. And I know that we're not trained psychologists, but we do kind of have to keep that in mind when people tell us stories. And we have to be really careful about how we handle that. But it does definitely play a role.
Maybe a factor for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
all of it.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah. So as far as bioluminescent eyes, I know that I think, Ken, you haven't experienced that. You haven't seen that. What are your thoughts on that? What is your take on that? If that is a legitimate attribute of a Bigfoot sighting, I mean, do you think that it's some sort of extra ability that they have that obviously we haven't been able to research yet?
Well, I should qualify this by saying on one occasion, August 18, 2003, when I recorded and heard some pretty convincing Bigfoot vocalizations at close range, and I was with another researcher named Chester Moore, we got up on a levee and shined a spotlight down at where we had just heard this thing, and we did see eye shine. I can't say definitively it was a Sasquatch, but there was eye shine very high off the ground where we had just heard these sounds, and it was not red. It was just the standard yellowish green eye shine that you would see on, most nocturnal animals. So that's my only experience with possible eye shine. Now, as far as this red eye shine, it truly is, forgive the pun, a red herring in the Bigfoot field because, there are. You guys have been doing this show for a while, so you've probably already talked about like the tapetum lucidum, which is an ocular membrane that we have, or that nocturnal animals have, that helps them kind of gather light in low light situations. So nocturnal species have this extra membrane in their eye, and then in some cases that could either look like a reflection, not a glow, but a reflection, and in certain situations it might even have a reddish look, color to it. Cliff Barrickman, I noticed, put a post up on the North American Bigfoot site, Bigfoot Center site, about a possible explanation for why the eyes on Sasquatches look red. And I think it was, worth exploring these types of genetic variations, that this hominin may have, particularly if they are primarily nocturnal. But I don't know. The third example would be, kind of what she was saying about a supernatural version of Bigfoot or Sasquatch that manifests and takes that form. And maybe that's when people see the red eye shine. But beyond that, I don't know, from a zoological perspective, it doesn't really make any sense at all. So it would have to be something outside of the box or the framework of zoology for sure.
If I could ask a quick question, what's our nearest ancestor that we were connected to that had that, and then we diverged?
The only primates that are nocturnal are galagos and bush babies, and some of the ones with the really huge eyes. They're primates. They're not monkeys. They're prosimians, so they're very primitive primates, but they have these big eyes because they're nocturnal. And but we probably, our last common ancestor was probably like 50 million years ago. So it doesn't really, and you don't find it in any other great apes or monkeys or anything like that. So I'm not going to mention any names, but I had a sporting disagreement at a Bigfoot. One of the guys on the panel with me said, well, we don't know if Neanderthals may have had a tapetum lucidum. They may have had that, and, they were our closest relative. Well, that's called special pleading in logical fallacy. It's like something you can't possibly know. We don't know what Neanderthals' eyes were like. But saying, well, they might have had a tapetum lucidum, it's like, well, you'll never prove that either way. So, yeah, they might have, but if you follow evolution, then it's highly unlikely they would have adapted that,
That's kind of grasping at, stretching it, it's kind of far out there.
Well, I guess I'm...
Because, you're speaking from a scientific side. What primates do we really know that actually can do that, So, besides the bush babies.
Well, what about, because we had split sleep, though, way back where humans slept for half the night and then they were up. Well, it'd be evening and then they were up for a significant section of the night. And then they would, do you think that back then that there could have been any... I haven't done research on all that, but if they were up in the night.
They were up in the night, but not for long, just like an hour, right?
Oh, I thought it was 2 or 3 hours, but maybe not.
Yeah, we're not, humans typically are not nocturnal creatures until electricity came along, and then some of us evolved and became nocturnal. I'm familiar with that, but yeah, I don't know. Our mutual friend Tom Seward from Sasquatch Island, we were talking about red eye shine at a conference one time, and he said, "Oh, those are native spirits. Those are when people see the red eye shine. That's not a Sasquatch. That's a native spirit in the woods." And who am I to question the concepts of Native American spirits? But I think he was on the right track in terms of it's not something flesh and blood at that point. Maybe it's something metaphysical.
I mean, that's a good point.
Makes me want to have a proton pack. Do some ghost busting.
That kind of goes into I think you'd have a similar thing to say about the whole orbs thing, because I know a lot of people talk about orbs go by multiple names. I mean, they've been spotted for since we started writing history. They go by many names. Ignis Fatuus, fairy lights. I see where the story of the jack-o'-lantern come from, these floating light balls. But I'm not sure at what point it got connected to Bigfoot. I know that a lot of people say that they're spotted a lot in line with a Bigfoot sighting, but every time I have seen those floating light balls, they're like somebody's carrying a flashlight around and it's bobbing around in the woods, but obviously we're pretty deep in the woods typically when I see it, so there's obviously nobody there, and then they just kind of fade out. But they've never been in connection with a Bigfoot sighting for me. So I think they're a whole different separate phenomena personally. And I think that when, people are out in these very dense areas and they spot something like that, they might attribute it to Bigfoot because of where they're at. It's kind of what I'm gathering. But I was wondering, Anne, have you ever had anyone come to you with these stories of these floating light balls in the woods?
I've heard stories just being in the community about people seeing the orbs and then they have this experience with the Sasquatch, but then they're also just seeing the lights on their own. I don't know what I think about it. I mean, I'm used to the story of the will-o'-the-wisp and how you're not supposed to, follow it. Of course, I would probably follow it. And, but I mean, if we're going to put the orb with the Sasquatch, then I would feel within my belief system that it wouldn't be the flesh and blood Sasquatch then it has to be connected with the orb, and it would be then that shapeshifter type of thing that to me all falls in with like fairy lore and stuff that you hear from Scotland and Ireland. So that would be.
I've got a thought on that as well. That was a good point. But so I've had this discussion with different researchers that have seen these orbs in the woods at night when they're out on Bigfoot hunts. And one time, maybe 25 years ago, I was doing Bigfoot research at a place called Charles Mill Lake near Mansfield, Ohio. There were sightings out there near the lake. I was out there at night and with a colleague, and we saw one of these black triangle UFOs fly overhead that we talked about in the UFO story. It was totally quiet. It was this huge black triangle-shaped object that blocked out the stars, had 3 points of light that were changing color. We couldn't get a picture of it because we weren't prepared for that. So if I was the type of person to exercise something called patternicity or apophenia, which is an evolution in our brain, which makes us sometimes want to find connections with things, meaningful connections. If I was prone to patternicity, I would have said, oh, we're here looking for Bigfoot and there's a UFO, so there's a Bigfoot UFO connection. So I think it's a similar type of scenario with these Bigfoot researchers that are nowadays. I think there is a valid light phenomenon that's going on in the woods. And I don't know what it is. It could be some type of discharge from the earth, either plasma or methane or geological things to energy coming out of the, our planet is an organic living thing. So there's energy, and energy sometimes appears as light. Now, I'll ask Abe, what kind of people are out in the woods at night for hours and hours in the middle of the woods with surveillance equipment sitting around? Big researchers, right?
Color lights on their head and stuff. Yeah.
So you got people that are out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, and they may see one of these light phenomenon. They're more likely to see it than other people that are out in the woods at night and don't have all that surveillance equipment.
Mhm.
So I think they are seeing a valid phenomenon of some kind, but I think that the issue is that they're trying to connect it to the Bigfoot, because that's why they're there looking for Bigfoot, and it's a Bigfoot active area. But
Exactly.
it's kind of a coincidence that they're seeing something else unexplained.
Yep, I agree. I mean, there are bioluminescence. Excuse me. Plants. There's also bioluminescence fungus. And even rotting trees create fungus that also has bioluminescence wood too sometimes. And we don't know everything that's out in the woods. And there's more discoveries still being made. Yeah, it's 2025, right? 80. So 2026, sorry. It's been one of those days, kind of slow, lackadaisical day. But even as far as we came along, scientifically speaking, there's just things that science can't even, long story short. How many species or subspecies or different variations of tall, hairy hominid, Bigfoot-like creatures you guys think there are?
You have an idea how many different species?
Nope.
Okay, well, let's go back to Ivan T. Sanderson, who was one of the pioneers in our field. He proposed 4 to 5 different types of mystery hominins at that type, and he called them the neo-giant was Sasquatch, and you had the subhuman, the proto-pygmy, the little ones, and so on and so forth. And so there is a lot of variation around the world in terms of, different types of reports. But I kind of take Grover Kranz's position, which is, you have a hard enough time convincing scientists that there's one species of undiscovered, undescribed relict hominin running around the planet. But then if you come to them and say, well, there's actually 4 different types, it just seems less probable. So I think it's more likely that you have different levels of interpretation or perception by eyewitnesses, recalling different types of features, and also speciation, which happens when you have, for example, a Sasquatch from Oregon is going to look different from a skunk ape from Florida, because the habitats are completely different. So the one in Florida, there's like 18 different species of mountain lions. They're all Puma concolor, the mountain lion or a puma. But from Argentina to Central America to Colorado to Alaska, they have slightly different coloration and size and features, because they've adapted to different habitats. So I think that's the most logical thing, is there's really just one type that would explain Sasquatch, the Yeti, the Yeren, the Yowie, and all these different types around the world, because the descriptions are mostly similar. But then you might have some variation within the species in terms of different individuals, different sizes and colors, juveniles, and so on and so forth. So I don't really think there is more than one type, or more than one species. But then you have some kind of outliers, like in Asia, where you talk about the Almasti or the Kaptar or the Dev, which are described as being much more human-like and less hairy, and sometimes even having primitive clothing and tools or spears and a language. And before Meldrum and I used to we had a discussion one time, because he said, well, I think the Almas are primitive Neanderthals that have survived. And I said, I don't think even the most primitive Neanderthals, because Neanderthals were actually, they were creating like art and like jewelry and they were highly intelligent, and their brains were as big as ours. I mean, they were basically like humans with just stockier bones. So, but maybe something like feral humans, or uncontacted groups of humans that live in very, wilderness areas. I mean, there's 100 uncontacted tribes in the world right now, where you have, thousands of individuals that live very, and they live in a very wild state, in terms of nature. So I think if someone ran across someone like that, they might think, oh, wild man or Almasty or whatever. But,
You got my wheels turning here, bro. And it just kind of makes me think, I agree with you and everything that Ivan T. Sanderson said about the 4, species and whatever. But is almost like Homo sapien. We got Homo sapiens that live in one continent, and throughout the continents, you can see different characteristics and stuff like that as well, because they've acclimated to that as well. And then the same thing goes with their feet. From people who are wearing shoes, you could tell from people who are not wearing shoes. Now, from the sightings that are coming in, we got people saying, "Oh, this one had a really conical and pointed head, and the other and it had a really gorilla-looking nose and face." Where on the other side of the coin, it's more of a rounder head, kind of a human face, kind of a human-looking nose as well. But however, they all are being big, hominoid, swinging arms, and the characteristic that they all kind of share is their footprints. Is that their footprints are more along the homogeneous, I guess you could say, compared to gorilla, orangutan, chimps, and stuff like that, where they have that divergent big toe that's going way out from the side, which is more of an indication of a boreal species, where something that is more like the feet that we have is more kind of a ground dweller, so to speak. Great.
Yeah, good points.
Yeah, you got my wheels spinning. I love it. I love it. Every time, we're like, it's electric. Any questions out of the chat room?
Just a lot of statements, but I did want to ask you, Anne and Ken, since Anne, you kind of go into paranormal research, have you ever went with her to do paranormal research, or how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's something that you could see yourself doing?
Yeah.
We're going to combine that during the Scotland.
Yeah, we got a Scotland tour coming up next year, and we're going to be kind of combining, that kind of some of that kind of research into the cryptid stuff. And we've been at some haunted locations at conferences, like we're doing Parapsychon in May, which is at the the Mansfield Reformatory,
Shawshank,
which is a pretty haunted. We don't really have time to do research while we're there. They do organize ghost hunts, but we're not really part of that. But I would, I'd be game. But the Scotland tour next year is kind of a cool opportunity for us to kind of combine kind of the cryptid stuff and some of the more
spiritual, paranormal,
supernatural
type
stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Years ago, like 15 years ago, kind of more like when I started getting into the Bigfoot research stuff, I combined my paranormal research immediately with my Bigfoot research. So I would go out with my paranormal equipment and try to utilize whatever spirits might be around to try to find Bigfoot. And I utilized a lot of the Native American places. And at one point, we got some really cool responses. I asked it was a spirit box. I asked, "What are we here looking for?" And it said Bigfoot. And I said, "Where can we find Bigfoot?" And it said, "Go east." And I'm not kidding you. 2 weeks later was when I had my really intense Bigfoot experience in that same location, slightly east of where we were when we were talking to my devices. So I just thought, it was really, really, really cool. And that was the one that was featured on Terror in the Woods.
Very cool.
So it was really, really cool. So, I mean, if you guys want to try it out, that's kind of a fun little thing to do, to try to utilize the spirits around you to point you towards things.
I mean, you just crap scared out of you. You start drawing circles around you, right?
Yeah, seriously.
I think that it's a really good idea to be able to combine different modalities, because if our communities, because there's a billion different little communities within our one big community, if we could come together with our research, I think that we would get so much farther than how things are kind of currently with the gatekeeping and the scuttles between
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that the line is starting to blur a little bit more than it ever used to. It used to be a very hard line drawn between these different sorts of research, but I've noticed a lot more recently, the past 10 years, these lines have blurred and people are kind of branching out into more unique things to research. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there could be. I mean, that's what research is about: is being open-minded. If we're taking something that from paranormal research and trying to incorporate that into the Bigfoot. I don't see Bigfoot as a paranormal. I'm with you on that one, Ken. But into like using it for Bigfoot, then there could be something there, and it should be investigated more deeply.
Oh yeah.
Because if it's working, then we'll have to just if it's working, just keep on seeing how what's the averages of it working and stuff like that. So how many times is it working? Is it on point? But yeah, there's a lot to it. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of different communities in this whole Bigfoot community, and I think, yeah, if we just kind of sat down and hit the drums and sang "Kumbaya" once in a while. And take what we wanted to try to implement in one area. But there are some people who are old school, and I'm old school. I'll be the first to admit, an old school researcher that I very slowly would try to implement something into a research area, because these creatures could be, I'm not saying that they are, but they could be used to patterns that we bring into the field that we are studying in. Certain clothes. Well, Robert W. Morgan, his book, he wore the same thing when he took the same path when he was going into his field of research years after years after years, and he had awesome things happening to him. So I think, they watch us, they watch how we walk, our mannerisms, the tone of our voice and everything like that, and what we bring in. And implementing something different, it can go either way, but you don't know if you don't try. So at least try.
For sure.
Yeah, you want to try things. I love it when I hear about researchers trying new things and thinking outside the box and stuff. There was a ghost researcher. Gosh, I feel embarrassed. I don't remember his name. It's been a while since I've talked to him, but he was really into doing the EVP thing where he'd try to get recordings of voices and things. But what he would do is he would take these audio recorders to a cemetery and bury them in a glass jar and leave them running. And then he'd come back, like 8 hours later the next morning. And he actually came up with some weird, how is this recording? It's under the ground in a cemetery, but
that's interesting.
It was just the idea. Let's try some. I don't know if anyone's done this. Let's try this and see.
Yeah, it's like the paranormal form of an LDR. That's interesting. So, so Ken, what is your most unique? Because I know that you research a variety of cryptids. Anything from, I think you spoke about. My Mothman, and to Bigfoot. So what's your most unique cryptid that you have researched?
Oh gosh. Well, unique. Boy, it's kind of a word that can be applied in many different directions. I mean, in terms of flesh and blood unique cryptids, in 2021, a group of us went out to Northern California and searched for the legendary monster giant salamanders of the Trinity National Forest, which are often mentioned in Bigfoot literature because we're talking about the same locations, close to Bluff Creek and stuff. So that was interesting in terms of looking for these supposedly monster 5 foot, 8 foot long salamanders. And we did it very scientifically. We used a lot of technology, but I consulted with a research biologist who specialized in giant salamanders, Asian giant salamanders. And he said, you just get in the water and you start reaching under rocks and sweeping up so that was we didn't find them, but it was kind of a really interesting, unique cryptid that was we had to research all, about giant salamanders and where we would find them if they existed. So that was kind of a flesh and blood thing. In terms of more of the supernatural things, I mean, obviously I've investigated Mothman, a pigman of Angola Bridge in New York, the bunny man of Fairfax Station, which is kind of, I think, just a crazy guy running around in a bunny suit in the woods.
That's wild.
Around Easter time, was it? These things were happening.
Frogs, not the Loveland frog, but there was supposedly a monster frog in a lake in Massachusetts, Silver Lake. I searched for that. So Yeah, lots of kind of just offbeat, you know. Back when I was a musician and I was touring, I was really into the cryptid stuff. I would sometimes go on excursions in the middle of the night because I was the driver. I didn't drink, so I was the designated driver after gigs. And I remember searching for the beast of Busco one night, which is the giant snapping turtle that supposedly lives in Folks Lake, Churubusco, Indiana. So I pulled over at a gas station at like 5 a.m, and there were these old timers out there. And I said, "Hey, have you guys heard of that giant turtle?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, let me give you directions to the lake."
Oh man.
So I drove out there. The band is all passed out, you know, in the van, and I just pull over on the side of the road and start going into the woods and looking for this giant lake, this lake where this giant turtle lived. And some farm dogs kind of came after me, so I had to abort.
Oh no.
So yeah, I like some of those offbeat things when you're talking about cryptid turtles and salamanders and, you know, just kind of offbeat weird things like that. They're not a main focus of my research, or I think anyone's research, but it's just kind of a fun side trip sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fun.
So I don't know if you know Gwendolyn, but Ken, I know that you had a cryptid head in a freezer for quite some time, for many years, I think it was. And that story and how you came across that chupacabra. He had a head of a possible chupacabra, is what they called it, in his freezer, Gwendolyn. And could you shed some light on that one? I know it's probably more like something with mange, but for those who are not familiar or are familiar and are tuning in, if you could shed some light on that for them, that'd be awesome, bro.
Yeah, well, there was the Texas version of the chupacabras, which were dogs or canids that were hairless and had other physical deformities. I was on a bunch of TV shows, including Monster Quest back in the day, researching those. And there was one that was road killed near Rudersville, Texas in 2012, and a bunch of cars pulled over to look at this carcass. And it was really grotesque, and they didn't know what it was. So one guy had the wherewithal to throw it in the back of his pickup truck. And they called me and said, "Hey, do you want this body? You know, we've got this dead chupacabra that got road killed out here." This was a couple days later. So I drove out there at the time I was driving a Chevy Equinox, and they had this thing in a cooler, but they'd left the cooler out in the driveway in the sun, Texas sun. So it was like the water was all melted and it smelled to holy hell. It was decomposing. But I repacked it in ice and I threw it in the back of my Equinox and drove back to San Antonio. And for a couple of days, I didn't know what to do with the carcass. I couldn't afford DNA testing or anything. I knew it was a canid. I mean, you could tell by looking at the skull and the teeth. It was completely hairless. Its limbs were different lengths, and it had a weird look to it. But I kept it in the cooler on my patio for a few days. And I was sure my neighbors at the apartment complex thought I was a serial killer because every time they walked by my patio, they were smelling this rotting flesh. And I called a bunch of taxidermists. I said, "Will you mount this thing?" And they're like, "No, it's that in that state of decomposition, we're not going to mount it." So ultimately, I had a friend that owned a house, and I said, "Hey, can I come bury this carcass in your yard until I know what to do with it?" You know, and he said, "Sure, bring it over." And a funny story: while we're digging the hole to bury this, we wrapped it in a tarp. While we're digging this hole to bury this dog-like creature, his neighbor, who apparently had a very annoying dog that barked all the time, stuck his head over the fence and said, "Hey guys, have you seen my dog? I guess it ran off or something. I can't find it." And we've got like this dead dog wrapped in a tarp, and we're like, "No, man, we haven't seen that, you know, whatever." That was funny. But anyways, I took some tissue samples from it as Abe's. I didn't have the whole head, but I took the tongue and some other tissue samples and froze it in freezer. And then about a year or two later, I did a show on National Geographic where I came back and dug it up. And the whole crew was like standing back like this. I had gloves on and stuff. Hold on. Since they brought it up, I've got the bones right here. So, I mean,
wow.
Here's the lower mandible. Let's see. That's the mandible. I've got the teeth somewhere too. So it's a canid.
Oh, yeah.
Dog. Here's another chupacabra from Oklahoma that someone gave me. This one turned out to be a bobcat, but it was
Oh,
When they
Oh,
found the body, it was badly decomposed and it looked like a weird alien creature. You can see, but
yeah.
so yeah, I've got little body parts here. So yeah,
wow.
why did you?
So you can show it
Oh,
better.
okay. Well, I
I
thought
do
you
that
were-
every time.
Show and tell.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us, man. That's
Thank
great.
Yeah, it was a dog, a canid, but it did, it looked weird and maybe it was deformed or had a disease or something. So
Yeah. So did it ever go through any kind of testing, or you just because
yeah,
it's so
Nat Geo actually did pay for a DNA test with the tissue from the tissue sample, and it did turn out to be a domestic dog,
Mm.
familiaris, but I guess it was a feral dog. But again, it was hairless and it had weird teeth and an overbite and weird. The limbs were different lengths. I think the forelimbs were shorter than the rear limbs or something. So
Makes me question incest breeding or something like that, incestual.
Right.
Deformities happen with that.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but then we got some ugly dogs out there that people breed just to be ugly because they think they're ugly is cute too. So,
that's true.
yeah, that's crazy. Gwen,
Wow.
did you have more questions that you can see in the chat room?
none in chat, but I did want to say if you guys ever want to check out a really cool location for a paranormal investigation, a friend of mine has a place out in Tennessee. It's the old South Pittsburgh Hospital, and it is a very, very, very active location. It's actually, I spent a lot of time there volunteering. So active, in fact, that I create a lot of times my own investigating tools, and sometimes they're electronic, sometimes not. But I would test my new equipment that I would create at that location because the activity was so repetitive. Like you could actually research paranormal activity there because it was so active. Like it was a repeatable experiments that we could do. It's kind of a unique location. So if you ever want to check it out, it's the old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee. So
Very cool.
Really
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
yeah.
Nice. We were talking about flesh and blood and versus like spiritual and things like that. I was thinking about having Scott Nelson on, and we had David Ellis on. Scott was, talking about the articulation, and David Ellis was talking about these recordings and everything like that. Versus something that's flesh and blood, and versus something that's spiritual. To me, it seems like it is more flesh and blood because it can so with the spiritual side, I mean, you get EVPs, obviously, but and language, but there's how do I want to put this? Can a spiritual thing articulate and have this communication between two of them when you can see two different ranges on a spectrograph versus something that is non-spiritual? Just popping in there. What are your, and as far as language goes, what are your guys' thoughts on Bigfoot language communication?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard Scott do his presentation a couple of times, most recently at your conference, Abe, a couple of years
Yeah, I was just
ago.
going to say, were you there a couple of years ago with him?
Yeah, and I also heard him give it back in Oklahoma back in 2010, I think. So,
Wow.
I mean, he's obviously a linguist, so he has a more of a nuanced understanding of things like that. I don't see my issue with Sasquatch is I think there's a lot of people in the field. We were talking about the paranormal Bigfoot people earlier, but there's also a subculture in the Bigfoot field that wants to humanize Bigfoot and make it as human as possible. And they often point to the DNA findings, which are faulty or whatever. And but if you look at the traditional Sasquatch, and I used to say Patty, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I wasn't going to bring any of that up.
But Sasquatches, like Abe said, are frequently described as having that like very sharp receding forehead with a conical shaped head.
Yeah.
That skull shape would indicate a much smaller brain than Homo sapiens. We've got these big dome heads because we have this 1,300 cubic centimeter brain matter, but Sasquatches seem to have a small brain case based on the shape of their head. Now that I understand the size of the brain doesn't necessarily indicate intelligence because some animals with huge brains aren't very smart, and animals with teeny brains get the most out of what they have. So, but that would be my first inkling, is that. And also, as far as Sasquatches, we don't really have any definitive evidence that they use complex tools or make tools or use fire. And so now we're talking about all kind of the things that define humanity in my mind, in terms of our ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years. Learning to make tools came first, then learning to use fire, manipulate fire, and then that led to other advancements in terms of our hunting skills and growth of our brains. But I don't know. I don't think Sasquatches, I've heard the vocalizations I've heard sounded like very ape-like, and I've also heard some whoops and moans and grunts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I do get the impression that they have a wide, diverse range of vocalizations that they use. And some researchers even think they try to mimic other animals, which may be true. But in terms of a language, when we're talking about language, we're talking about true sapient intelligence. And I just, I don't know. I don't know if they could have that ability.
With historic reports of the kidnapping of women and stuff like that, and the possible breeding with Homo sapiens, maybe that's something that has been formed or is possible, compared to it, not being possible. I guess more research and more things like that need to kind of go look into that aspect of this Bigfoot phenomenon.
Absolutely. But, so many questions. So many.
Yeah, a lot of them. And I wish I could just pick you guys' brain a lot more longer, but we got about 3 minutes before we have to. Yeah. We 2 minutes now. We got to have you guys come back on.
No, that would be wonderful.
We'd love to come back sometime for sure.
Yeah, I would love for you guys to come back. I mean, I think that you guys are going to be a great duo out in the field. You're going to bring a lot to the field. So I appreciate you guys and for coming on. And I just want to say again, if people want to learn more about you specifically, Ken, they can go to kengerhard.com. You have your books on sale there. You also have cryptid courses. So that's pretty interesting. So check that out too. And where can people find you and your work?
They can go to AnneCeline.com. They can also find me on Facebook under Anne Celine. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. Yeah, hopefully we can see you guys on here again soon. I'm going to ask our guests that are viewing the show, if you kind of stick around, we're going to do our updates after the show today, since you guys' time is limited and you're very busy. So we're going to let you jump off, and I appreciate you guys again. So thank you guys
so much. Good to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Great night.
Yes,
thanks for everyone. Thanks for listening in, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you. So I just wanted to get them on here, get them talking, because I know that their time is limited. But, I just also think it's really important for people to kind of know what we're up to. So how about you, Abe? What do you got going on with MNBRT and your upcoming conference?
Well, what was it? About 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that we were about to release a speaker for the conference. I'm still waiting for that speaker to get back to me with an upgraded picture and bio and stuff like that. So things are moving right along with that. We're supposed to have a team. So when we have a team meeting, we like to get together. We like to cook. We like to bounce ideas off, thoughts off of each other, and then go hit the field and do some research in an active area. Well, that kind of fell apart for Saturday. So we pushed that out a couple of weeks, but I'm thinking me and Littlefoot might get out into the field this weekend, depending on the weather. April showers bring May flowers. And so in the past research and doing this for many years, I've come to find out that Bigfoot activity, when it rains, is not as active. So I would rather do something, and it's never a waste of time. Don't get me wrong, but I'd rather go out there when there's no rain, no cold, because it's already cold here in Minnesota, right? So, and the temperature today was about 45 and 48. I miss California. I just came back from California. I was out there for a few days for my niece's 1 year birthday. Had a great time, went sightseeing, Disneyland, went down to the border of Tijuana. And to come back to Minnesota, where I have to wear two pairs of pants and long sleeves and stuff like that, it's like, oh my gosh, put me back out there.
Right.
Beautiful. But, we got things moving right along for MNBRT and the MBC. And how about yourself? You got something coming up. It's kind of big up in August.
Yes. So I got to learn how to flip that around. I will get that figured out. But this Irons, Michigan Bigfoot Conference, it's going to be August 15th and 16th this year. We have more speakers to add to the flyer. We got vendors coming in, flowing in. We want it to be a nice big event where everybody the whole family can come and have a good time. I know that we kind of took a week off, but I did want to say we spoke about the last time we were live about how we were having a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. And so I wanted to take the time to go out. I couldn't, where they were happening at, it was 3 hours away, and I couldn't get up there. But I went out a few times into some other locations that I'm familiar with that are pretty active. And one of the trips, I was sitting behind it, and I go really far off trail, and I was by myself. And so I go out by myself, but it was during the day, so it wasn't like night or anything like that. And I heard something go whoop like that. It was the only thing I heard for a really long time. And so I'm sitting there probably another 15 minutes. I'm literally just sitting and chilling behind a tree, just listening. And I got this urge. I was like, there was this hill. I wanted to, it's a hill, then another big hill. I wanted to get up to that big hill because I was like, this is the perfect place to kind of see everything around me. And so I was like, okay. So I tied off some more, because I tie off stuff when I go really far off trail. I tie off reflective things periodically to kind of make sure I don't get lost. Plus I have my app open to see the maps. So I'm tying things off as I go up this big hill. And right when I get to the top, I run into this real strong urine smell. And I'm like, man, what is that? And it immediately stops me in my tracks, and I'm sniffing. And I'm like, okay, something's been marking this territory. And not even a second later, I hear, first time ever, rock clacking. And it was almost like Morse code. It was like clack, 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 clack. And it went on for a good long time. And I pulled out my camera because I wanted to do it quick, and I had my recorder and stuff in my bag, and I was like, should have had this stuff out. But I had my phone, so I just grabbed my phone, and you can kind of sort of hear it in the audio on the camera. I really would like to get the audio isolated and boosted, but I'm going to show it and see if anybody can hear it. It only happens for the first 30 seconds of this video, but the first 10 seconds is the most loud. Unfortunately, you cannot hardly hear it. So that's why I tried to boost it, but for some reason, when I pulled the audio from the video, it diminished the sound quality. So I need to figure out how to not diminish the sound quality when I'm pulling the audio from the video, to be able to put it into a audio, like an audio thing, to be able to isolate and amplify that specific area where you can hear the rock clacks. But again, another bomb on my part, where I had a really cool experience and got really nothing to show for it. But
that's cool. I mean, when you were describing the boom clack, clack,
yeah,
I don't know why. It's just my brain works sometimes. But that song "Hoedown" from Hannah Montana kind of got in my head. My head. Boom clack, boom clack, clack, boom boom clack. It's a hoedown. Okay. Sorry,
to be
everybody.
fair, I never said boom, but
no, you didn't say boom. But the clack, 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 clack. Yeah, that's in my head. I was just like, okay, that's kind of a cool beat. And then it grasped onto the nearest thing. But so just a little bit of what my head holds.
That's the way my brain works too. Behind the scenes antics with Gwendolyn and Abe.
There's so much here. It's funny. Oh man, that's great.
But yeah, I mean, it was a fun time, and I plan on going back out. I've been out a few times so far. That was the coolest time I've had out so far. But yeah, I like you. We were talking about just the cabin fever. I'm tired of being inside, so it's exciting for it to be relatively warm enough to go out. So
yeah, and it looks like you had a great day. It looks like blue skies and nice and quiet was out there. So I'm sure to you, it was like, oh my gosh, oh, there's piss and something's coming away. What the heck, you know? And you got your phone out and the excitement, like, this is cool. Kind of freaking out, like, okay, you know, the same thing happened to me back in 2021, 2022. I was in an area by myself. It was Memorial Day weekend. And I was in this area obviously because it was on a Native American reservation, and outside of the reservation and also on the reservation, there's been sightings of Bigfoot and footprint casted and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I think I noticed this one actually was casted. Oh wait, I got both of them here actually. These two casts came out of that area. Now, obviously, we got two different individuals just by the size of their footprints here. So I went out to this area. Actually, June 6th of 06, this one was found by the county road grader, which was casted by a colleague, Bob Olson, up in northern Minnesota. And this one was actually on Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot show, called Bigfoot Town, with the episode that we were on as well. This is the Sammy, aka Sammy Cleveland footprint. And another colleague in northern Minnesota, Don Sherman, is the one that casted this one. So I was out there. This one was from 2016. So a few years after this, and this is one of the reasons why I went to that area. So I'm walking in this area, and I was like, I didn't hear anything. So I do a couple of knocks, take my squat stick, and I had my cell phone going, and I was live at that time. But the signal was very choppy. And I heard what sounded like 5 replies back to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt, you know, this big. I felt like the smallest thing in the world at that time. I was like, okay, I'm way back here. Nobody knows where I'm at. And I'm like, okay, so I started to make my way back towards the road, not running, just really kind of quickly, because if something were to happen, because the one that was on Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot, the Sammy Cleveland one that I showed you, that one actually waded in the water, and it was like waiting for Sammy to come close to the shore, and that was a lighter colored Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, we don't know, but the creature finally took off once it heard Sammy's cousin coming, and it retreated back into the woods. So that one, with that being on my mind, could that one be a little bit more aggressive by nature? So I was like, okay, you know what? Better play it safe than sorry, and just kind of head back towards the road. Okay, cool. So I finally get out of the woods, and then when I'm on the woods, I hear 5 more, and I'm like, I got goosebumps. And I'm like, okay, I need more wood to have a big fire tonight. So I started gathering wood, and I slept very light that night, waiting all the while for a shadow, a silhouette to cross by my tent and stuff like that. So,
wow. So you were camping out there by yourself?
Yeah, I was. I do a lot of times out by myself.
I can't camp by myself. I mean, okay, it has more to do with the fact that as investigatively minded as I am terrified of the dark. So you will not see me camping by myself. You'll see me run in the woods all day by myself. Like, that's nothing to me. But when it gets dark, I need to have somebody with me, just because like your mind starts playing tricks on you, and you get spooked, and then your heart starts like, I just can't do the dark by myself. That's when I become a big wuss. So, little secret about me: I do not like to be out in the dark by myself.
So, do you sleep with a light on at night? Do you have a little night light?
My TV. I do. Mostly because I have animals and I'm afraid to step on one of them.
There's that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool though. But I know how you felt. I mean, it's like I wonder if that's still up on Facebook because I was going live and Facebook did a lot of things with pages as far as making room for their servers go. They did a lot of deletion of videos and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no. If they were certain age old, they were. You had so many days to pull them off, and I downloaded all of my stuff. I went through and downloaded everything. Yeah.
So, but you know what? I know there's always other opportunities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just about being in the right place and right time. So again, when people ask me if I found them, if they were the ones that were responsible for the 2 sets of 5 knocks, and you sounds like you found them as well, if they were responsible for that clacking, yeah, people ask us if we found them, and if they were responsible for that, we say yes.
Yeah.
And you ever get that look like,
where is it at?
Where are they at? You know? So we were talking about this before the show started. And it was like, yeah, because I was out in California, I was meeting my sister-in-law's side of the family. And I don't know who spilled the beans about me being a field researcher, but out in California, everybody knows about Bigfoot. So I was like, okay, cool. And so they go, you actually look for Bigfoot? And yeah, man, I'd like to do that sometime. I was like, go in the woods, because I was out in Southern California, which has some things, nothing compared to the Northern California. Huh. Yeah, so then what did we do? Yeah, it was just a great time. We were just talking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where are they at? They're in the woods. Well, I says, well, finding them and catching them are 2 different things. So.
Oh, yeah. Not like I could, wrestle it to the ground, give it a noogie, collect some hair, and, that's not the way it works. But, yeah, I mean, I'll go out in the woods by myself at night, but you won't see me camping. Not camping. Not all night. An hour, yeah. But when my mind starts to play tricks on me, and I'm like, there's a guy, he could be coming in the woods right now. Like I'm more afraid of other people than I am of things. Like really, just because there's a lot of, especially out where I'm at, if you run into a person in the woods, it's probably not for a good reason,
Okay.
Yeah.
You got some moonshiners out there. There's a couple of meth labs or something like that.
That's more like the second one.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that being an attractive woman out there by yourself. You definitely got, you got to protect yourself. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I would love to be able to get out to your conference, and if you can, swing up to mine. I know we're both very, very busy, so. I don't, expect you to be able to try to make it up there, and I'm going to try what I can to get to yours, but it would be cool to get to see, what aid gives so much effort towards. I think that it's going to be a really good conference to be a part of and just get to see.
Oh my gosh.
I won't be a part of it. I'll just get to experience it.
Well, I mean, it'd be, it's, any conference you go to, and I've been to my fair share, but there's always something that you always could take away from a conference. Because, I mean, if you're walking in there thinking like you know it all and you got a big ego and everything, just stay away from it. No. I like to go in there. I like to socialize, make connections. Yeah. If somebody can tell me something that I already don't know, hey, cool, great. And if I can do the same thing for them, what works for me? And we were just talking about this on the show. What works for me, kind of, with Ann and try different things and, doing the paranormal thing into the woods that may solicit a response from a Bigfoot, even have a sighting or something like that.
Yeah.
cool, but I would also be cautious as doing it as well, just for what I stated with the whole fact that Robert W. Morgan, the legendary Robert Morgan, he took things very slowly. And so if we look at that, Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall, they also took things very slowly with the apes, the chimps, and the gorillas. If this is somewhere along that lineage, more than the Homo lineage, then I think caution should not be just thrown in the wind. It should be something that's taken very seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think when I go to a conference, I think of it as a moment to get to see friends that I haven't got to see for a while.
It's like family reunion.
And learn. I mean, even if I go watch a speaker and they talk about things that I may already be familiar with, it's still exciting to have that similarity in ideas and stuff, and just to get to hear, how they came to that conclusion. So, I mean, I just enjoy it all the way around. So I hope I can get out to yours. If anybody wants to come to the Irons Michigan Bigfoot Conference, the ticket link is up there in the corner. And just so everybody's aware, I know that there is there's a weird sort of situation with the 2-day tickets. They're still 2-day tickets, even if it says one day or the other. I'm working on getting that fixed. But when you come to the door to get your ticket scanned, it states what the ticket is. So you will get in both days if you buy a 2-day ticket. So I just want to let everybody know that. Same with vendors. Vendors, it's a 2-day ticket no matter what. So you pay one price, you get both days automatically. So
cool.
All right. Cool. That's everything I have. So, Abe, you are once again a pleasure to have and bring to the conversation some really great questions and some great points. And I appreciate all of our. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just going to say I just appreciate rubbing my elbow with somebody the likes of you, to be honest. I mean, yeah. So thanks for having me on. It's part. Yeah. It's fun about that. Yeah, it's fun being part of the Folds family.
Yeah. You're an official co-host, so you are in my intro. So you're not going anywhere. You're trapped, Abe.
Every time I see that, I'm like, oh, that's yeah, it's cool. It's so cool. I love it too. It's awesome. It's so awesome to see that. So next week, we already have somebody lined up. Pretty sure I got to check with him. He was already in the chat room tonight. So I did see this person, and he was a speaker at the Minnesota Bigfoot Conference as well. So you guys definitely stay tuned. I mean, we're hopefully going to be talking about Bigfoot blood and how it's being looked at right now, and how he gathered it and how he tracked this sample. It's and this individual has other sightings as well. So oh my gosh! So for everybody who's watching this in the archives and here right now live, tune in next week for another great episode of the Folds Mystery.
It's gonna be a good one. All right, thank you everyone for joining in. We will see you next week.
Squatch on.